Alright, hey, it's Colin. So, back at it again with another video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Today we got the LS400. We're going to be swapping a fender out. I already did the other fender. I wanted to do that one first before I kind of showed you how to do it. It's a bit of a pain in the butt process. There's some stuff I couldn't record. But I'm going to kind of throw a cut now of that here. So, when you last saw the Lexus, you ended up only seeing the damage on the passenger fender. And that was pretty much it. I had that when I bought the car. Good thing we end up replacing it with 2 new fenders and headlights as well. So this headlight's staying. This is going. I'm not going to end up fixing this damage here, but this, this part here is going to be fixed. Besides that, this was the damage from the deer. This was a clean fender. Now it's bad, but this light ended up getting damaged and this ended up getting cracked. So this is going. That's going, and a whole new fender is going to go on the car. And I'm picking these parts up from a guy in Texas. Super solid seller. Ended up getting these shipped in within 1 day. Ended up paying around $500 total for 2 of the corner lights, 1 main light, and the 2 fenders. So not too bad. And that included shipping and handling. So we're going to get these installed on the LS400. Okay, so now you're going to want to get under the fender liner. Pull part of this out so you can start working at the bolts that connect the fender here. So now we're going to start working at the fender liner. Alright, so next you're going to want to pull up some of this weather stripping. I'm going to let these guys sit with some penetrating oil so that I can pull this under fender liner off. There will be a couple bolts I'm going to have to pull from this side with the door, but for now we're going to pull off this weather striping to make sure that we can get to the fender bolts on the top. So this part I'm noticing is a little bit more of a pain in the ass. I'm trying to get this part up. You have to squeeze it. It's also pretty dirty, but there's 2 bolts that are pretty much under here. You can kind of see them right there. 1, 2. Pulled off these. These are really easy. These are just 10 millimeters. And I also have to now pull out the light. But the light's damaged, so I'm just going to pull it off anyways so that I can access the rest of the bolts here. So in order to get this off, I ended up just busting this clip, breaking half of it, getting underneath here, pulling off these 2 screws. I'm going to end up cleaning this off before I put the car back together. And then the other portion of this now is I ended up pulling out this light because it was already damaged. The clip is already broken on this. And this kind of squeezes in there and plugs right in. So I'm just going to undo this part, pull this guy out, and then you have access now to this part of the fender. And you can also work on pulling out the headlight itself now that you've pulled this out. Alright, so once you unscrew everything, you'll have some bolts you have to get on the inside here. Pull this out, and then you also have to get pretty much each screw. They look like this. They go in those holes. You're going to want to pull this guy out, and then now you're going to want to undo pretty much all the wiring back here. And it looks like you got to get some like a pliers and kind of squeeze it to pull it out. So that's what you have to do next. pulled everything out. You ended up getting this last bolt here. You'll see the fender will start flexing. Looks like this cable's broken, so this will have to be fixed somehow, or this will have to be respliced. So we shall see. Next, we're gonna go underneath the fenders and we're gonna start pulling off everything underneath there. Okay, so once you've been able to basically pull off like every single bolt to pull off this fender liner, it starts coming off. The only other issue is it looks like it's attached down here at the bottom, so it looks like I'll try pulling that off. I believe the fender is only attached about right here. Looks like that's maybe the last part, and maybe this other part kind of there. You can't really see it very good. Focus on it maybe. Yeah, it's like about, it's here where the fender looks like it's attached. And then it looks like the last components are, there's gonna be a component from the inside from when you open the door. And it looks like there's 3 spots. So it looks like there's one right here, and then there's 2 underneath, which are here, 1 there, and then there's 1 behind it. And those look like the last 2 actual parts to pull off the fender. Okay, so a little update. There's a couple more screws I had to grab on the front here to pull this out. Looks like it's starting to come. There was a lot of parts I had to pull out from here. There's like 3 screws. I had to pull this guy back. It looks like it's glued and like sticky taped on there. So in order to do that, I had to pretty much pull this back, and then I had to grab like a angled, I had to grab one of these guys, twist that. Be careful you don't put too much torque or else you'll break 1 screw, because I think I broke 1 screw into the body of the car, which isn't good. But I was able to pull those guys out now too. So now it's pretty loose, but we're getting there. So now I have the fender pretty much pulled off. Got the last bolts up here. Basically, there's just a ton right here. You have to remove the headlight. You have to go in from this side, hitting every angle, pull them off, like a couple from this side, pull off a couple from this side, start bending the fender, and then you're good to go to pull the thing off. Okay, now after you've seen that cut, what I want to show you is we're going to start working on the LS. First, you got to pull the wheel off, get it jacked up and such, and then you got to start working with the under the wheel well to start pulling off the underskirt to make sure that you get that cleared off so you can start working on the fender itself. So now that you have the wheel off, you're going to want to take penetrating oil, hit all the bolts on the inside here. Also, you're going to want to open the hood so you can start pulling the rubber molding off the top of this fender. And essentially what that looks like are these rivets that you have to kind of pull them out of. They're just rubber, and you pull those out of here. All right, so next step is you're gonna want to pull off this trim molding here. So essentially you wanna pull this off all the way to here. Get all the leaves out. Sorry about the messy garage. The G3 used to be in here, and then I got loaded up with stuff again. So you're gonna wanna peel this up a little bit. There you go. That'll just come off. You'll see these guys, that's how they're held in. It's a little sad, but that's how it goes on. I'm gonna remember that it went on like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put it right there so I remember where that went. Same thing here. Pull this guy up. And that goes around there, like that. And you're trying to access some bolts right here. So it looks like you have to kind of wiggle your way through with this guy. And that has to come out. So I ended up pulling this off. You have to break this clip. And now I have access to those two bolts, which are right there. Gonna clean all that dirt out once I start pulling off the fender. And now we're gonna work on the underside and the inside bolts here. And then the front part's kind of the tricky part. So right now we're gonna get to penetrating oil and start pulling off the inside fender liner. So pulled this part of the fender liner out. Moving on to the next section. Pretty much everything is done with Phillips and a 10mm wrench for pretty much every single bolt in this entire process. So this is a little bit of the easier side of things, and then we'll start getting more into the complicated side. Okay, so now that you have the fender liner kind of pulled out in the front here, you're gonna get these bolts that connect to the fender here. You can either get this one that's underneath, underneath there, or you can get this piece right here, up to you. And then once you start working on it, you're gonna start pulling out the headlight. It's the next section, the top bolts. And then the bolts that are in the door. Then you can start actually moving the fender around. So I was able to pull that corner light out, and it had a broken tab, which is right here where it kind of plugs in. So I remember I had it super glued pretty much to the corner. So I have to re-glue that once I'm done. Pulled the slide out, which is really kind of hard to do, so I kept that in there. I have to get these two bolts. Then the headlight can come out, and I can start working on the fender itself. What I'm doing is I'm keeping everything separate, so I remember what screws go where. So these screws go over here. Those screws go on this side. These screws go to the headlight itself. Okay, so you have to be careful not to break bolts like this one, which goes into the headlight. So luckily there's like 4 or 5 other bolts that they connect with, but that's not good because that one broke off. So have to find probably a new hole to put that in. So that is not good. But other than that, you can start pulling off the fender now after using some penetrating oil, so we can hit some of these bolts. So now we're gonna pull off the bolts that are inside here. So we're gonna get those. There's two in the front, and then so there's two in the front there, the heavily rusted ones, and then there's one under here. So we're gonna get the two rusted ones that are up there, and then we're gonna get the one that's here, or we can get the one that's right by this fender in the bumper right here. Okay, so you have to be careful. I broke like two more bolts, and they're underneath. They're underneath here, so you have to basically take the wrench, go underneath, and there's two. I broke one of them, but you can see they connect into here. So this is the fender that comes off, and it looks like I have to pull off part of the bumper or something too. So we shall see. I think there's just a screw that goes into there. Alright, so I'm going to pull off this side here. I ended up breaking a few bolts because they're just so rusted on from living in Michigan. I'm hoping I can at least get this part off because I'm a little worried about it. Because this interior part broke off this. This broke from the bumper. So that's a problem. But you basically have to get all those bolts. And then there's two that you have to get underneath there. Got these two up here. Now I'm going to pull this off so that way I can get 2 or 3 here, and I have to open the door for the other ones. All right, so I ended up pulling off the old fender. It was a huge pain in the ass, and I didn't record some of it because I had to angle grind some of the, I basically had to angle grind this part of it off. Now I'm about to basically try to refit this one on. I realized that I have to take the underskirt side there, that black lining, and I have to put it on this panel. So I'm gonna start working on that now. So I made some progress on the LS400. It's pretty much finished. Here's the end result on the LS400. I think it looks pretty good. There was a lot of just finessing that you had to do with both sides of the fenders. It wasn't fun. There was a lot of stuff I kind of ended up cutting out because it's just so much like messing with, you just have to mess with screws and bolts, and you have to adjust different ones and then take them off and then adjust them again. And it just wasn't a fun process, but anyway, here's the final result. I think it looks good.